May Cassidy rode into town, with dust on her boots and little else to her name. She wasn't the kind of woman folks expected to see handling cattle or trading horses, but the brim of her hat and the steady way she sat the saddle left no doubt she belonged to the land. At the courthouse bulletin board, nailed among notices for lost calves and church suppers, she spotted the deed, ranch for sale, 1. Most passed it by, thinking it a cruel joke. But May read it twice, folded the thought in her chest, and whispered, "Mine." The property lay 5 miles west, where fences leaned tired and grass grew patchy. The house sagged with missing shingles, and the barn tilted like it was remembering storms too heavy to forget. She paid the single dollar in the clerk's hand, signed her name in careful strokes, and took the deed that felt both fragile and permanent. When she opened the gate that first day, her mare hesitated, sniffing the air as if it too understood they were stepping into a story. May swung down, boots crunching on gravel, and told herself the ranch was worth every dream left. Inside the house, the air smelled of dust and loneliness. Curtains clung by a thread, windows rattled in frames too thin for winter. May ran her hand along the table, carved with initials she didn't know. In the barn, she found a rusted lantern, a stack of hay brittle as paper, and tracks fresh ones, boot prints small as a boy's. She crouched, touching the dirt. Someone had been here, not days ago, but this very morning. Her hand drifted to the colt at her hip. "Who's here?" she called, voice calm but strong. The rafters answered with silence, and the air thickened. Then a shuffle. From the loft above, straw rustled, and a face peeked out thin. Dirt smudged, eyes too sharp for his age. A boy, maybe 10, maybe 12, clutching a tin plate like it was a shield. May didn't reach for her gun. Instead, she tipped her hat back and looked him square in the eye. "Name?" she asked. He didn't answer, only stared as though measuring whether she was wolf or kin. "I'm May Cassidy," she said softly. "This place is mine now." His jaw tightened. "It was mine first," he said, voice trembling but stubborn, like roots in hard soil. May studied him, not with suspicion, but with the patience storms teach. His clothes were ragged, boots too small, one sole patched with twine. "How long you been here?" she asked. He shrugged, a motion more protective than careless. "Since Pa rode off last winter, said he'd come back, didn't." The words fell flat, like coins that had lost shine. May's throat tightened. She had known absences that left scars deeper than bullets. She leaned against a post, letting silence stretch. Finally she said, "A ranch can hold 2. Question is whether we work it together or let it fall." The boy climbed down slow, wary as a colt unbroken. "Jonah," he said at last. The name fit him biblical, stubborn, weathered by something larger than himself. Dust clung to his hair, and his eyes were the color of river stones. May offered her hand, rough from reins and rope. He looked at it, then at her, then shook once, quick, like touching fire. "You plan on staying?" he asked. "I didn't come here to wander," May answered. His gaze softened a fraction, though distrust still lived there. Trust wasn't given in the West. It was earned nail by nail, sunrise by sunrise. That evening, May lit the lantern and boiled coffee black enough to carry through the night. Jonah sat across the table, spooning beans from a dented tin, chewing slow like he was memorizing the meal. Dust, her mare, shifted outside, and coyotes sang from the ridge. "Townfolk don't know you're here?" May asked. Jonah shook his head. "If they did, they'd ship me east, or worse, put me under someone who don't care." May sipped, the bitter grounding her. "You'll stay," she said finally. "But you'll pull your weight. This land won't forgive idlers." Jonah's lips twitched. "Neither will I." The next morning smelled of frost and fence posts. May rose before dawn, rousing Jonah with a gentle knock. He groaned, dragging boots too big for him, but followed. Together they walked the property. Barbed wire sagged in places, posts leaned like tired men. "We fix these," May said. "One at a time." Jonah eyed the horizon. "It's too much for two." May squinted at him. "Then we'll be more than two. You, me, and Grit." He smirked faintly, the kind of smile boys wear when hope dares step back inside their ribs. May handed him a hammer. "Start here." By noon, hands blistered and backs sore, they had one line of fence upright. Jonah drove nails with awkward rhythm, missing as often as he struck true. But each swing carried weight, and May praised effort, not perfection. Dust grazed nearby, lifting her head when shadows moved. A hawk circled, marking them small on the land, yet unbroken. May saw the boy's pride bloom in sweat and dust. "Looks better already," she said. Jonah wiped his brow, leaving a streak of dirt like war paint. "Maybe it ain't hopeless," he admitted. The words were small but brave, and May smiled. At sundown, May cooked cornbread in a skillet over the hearth, while Jonah dozed in the chair, boots stretched, arms limp. The boy looked younger in sleep, years falling from his face like dust shaken from a coat. May studied him, the rise and fall of his chest, the way his hands curled as if still gripping nails. She thought of her own father, long gone, and the ache of promises never kept. A strange warmth grew in her chest, not quite motherhood, not yet friendship, but something rooted. Outside, the land hushed, listening as if it approved of beginnings. Days turned to rhythm. Fences mended, water hauled, the barn swept clean until its scent was hay again, not neglect. Jonah grew stronger, voice steadier, though the shadows under his eyes lingered. He rarely spoke of his father, but once May found him staring at the horizon, whispering, "He'll come back." May didn't argue. She knew hope sometimes needed to wear itself thin before truth could replace it. Instead, she laid a hand on his shoulder and said, "If he does, he'll find you standing tall, not hiding." Jonah nodded, jaw set. Pride was the salve for waiting wounds. One evening, while May sharpened tools, a rider appeared on the ridge. Stranger, wide-brim hat, rifle across the saddle. Jonah stiffened, fear flashing in his eyes. May rose slow, hand brushing the colt, and watched as the man paused, scanning the ranch. After a moment, he turned his horse and rode on without a word. Dust snorted uneasily, hooves pawing earth. Jonah whispered, "They've been watching." May narrowed her eyes. "Who?" "Men from town," Jonah said. "They think the ranch is cursed, or theirs for the taking." May's grip tightened on the tool. "Then they'll learn it's neither." The encounter left silence heavy in the house. That night, Jonah asked, "Why'd you buy this place anyway? For $1? May stirred the embers. "Because nobody else would, and I've been nobody else's for too long. I wanted a place that couldn't be taken easy." Jonah tilted his head. "What if it takes you instead?" May met his gaze. "Then it'll be worth the fight." Jonah chewed that answer, rolling it like tobacco in thought. At last, he nodded. "Guess it's better than running." May smiled faintly. "Running never builds fences." The boy finally laughed, short and honest. Trouble showed itself in small ways. Tools gone missing, a fence cut overnight, hoof prints where no horse should have been. May inspected the ground with the patience of a tracker. "They're testing us," she said. Jonah kicked the dirt. "Why us?" May looked toward the horizon. "Because we're here, and they don't like what stands where. They want open ground." Jonah's fists clenched. "We'll fight?" May rested a hand on his shoulder. "We'll hold. Fighting's easy. Holding that's the hard part." His jaw tightened, but his eyes lit with a spark. "Then I'll hold too." The West always demanded partners. One stormy evening, wind howled through cracked shutters, rattling the lantern flame. May tightened the window boards, while Jonah huddled near the hearth, blanket drawn, thunder shook the rafters. "Think the barn will stand?" he asked. May glanced at the roof, listening. "Barn's tougher than it looks. So are we." Lightning split the sky, illuminating the land in silver. For a breath, she saw her sister's face in the flash, lost, but not forgotten. She steadied herself, whispered, "We're not breaking tonight." Jonah caught her words, whispered them back. Together, they sat through the storm, proving silence could be strong. After the storm, they walked the land at dawn, inspecting the damage. A section of fence lay flat. Posts, uprooted. Wire, tangled. Jonah sighed, shoulders sagging. May handed him gloves. "Again," she said simply. They worked side by side, sweat mixing with the cool morning air. Each nail driven was defiance, each knot tied a promise. Jonah muttered, "Feels like the land's fighting us." May paused, looking at the sun climbing steady. "No, it's testing. If we pass, it'll give itself over." Jonah nodded, renewed, and swung the hammer harder. The fence rose again, stubborn as their will. By midsummer, the ranch began to change. Grass thickened. Cattle from neighbors strayed closer, sensing safety. Jonah's cheeks carried color now, his laughter echoing in the barn. May taught him to ride dust, his legs too short, but determination taller than pride. He fell once, twice, scraped an elbow, but climbed back each time. "You'll never ride if you're scared of dirt," May teased. Jonah grinned, mud streaked across his cheek. "Then I'll be the bravest rider alive." May laughed, the sound rusty but real. For the first time, the ranch felt less like a weight and more like a home. One afternoon they found an old trunk buried in the loft. Inside lay faded photographs, a Bible with pages curled, and a child's wooden horse. Jonah touched it reverently. "It was mine," he whispered. May studied the pieces of a life abandoned, fragments of stories that clung to the walls. "This land remembers," she said softly. "And it keeps what's left." Jonah hugged the horse, a rare tear tracing his cheek. May rested a hand on his back, not speaking. Some wounds didn't need fixing, only a place to rest where they wouldn't be forgotten. Rumors reached town that May had taken in a boy, and whispers sharpened into questions. "A woman alone can't run that place," they said. "She'll lose it before winter." May ignored the talk, but Jonah heard, shoulders tightening each trip to fetch supplies. "They think I'm a burden," he said once. May crouched to his level, eyes steady. "You're not a burden. You're the reason this place stands. Let them talk. We'll show them." Jonah swallowed, nodded. The West had always been loud with doubters. It was quieter with doers. Together they returned to the ranch, letting silence be answer. As summer stretched, trouble circled closer. Strangers lingered at fence lines, testing the boundary of patience. Jonah grew sharper, learning the language of hoofprints and the tilt of broken grass. May grew steadier, her resolve anchored not just in survival, but in him. Each sunrise became proof, each sunset a small victory. The ranch had been bought for $1, but the price it demanded was grit, trust, and the slow weaving of family out of strangers. And though May didn't say it yet, she knew. The boy who claimed the ranch first had claimed her heart as well. Autumn crept across the land, painting the grass in copper and thinning the streams. May felt the season in her bones, but Jonah felt it in his spirit. He had grown taller since spring, his voice edging toward strength. Yet the ranch whispered warnings, fences cut more often, cattle spooked at night, and lanterns flickering on ridges where no riders belonged. May sat on the porch one evening, rifle across her knees, while Jonah dozed against the doorframe. She watched the horizon and knew trouble wasn't coming tomorrow. It was already here, testing their patience, waiting for the right moment to strike. The first open warning came when dust reared at the barn, nostrils flared. Jonah rushed out, eyes wide, just in time to see a shadow vanish into the mesquite. In its place lay a knife, driven deep into a fence post. Carved into the handle was a crude mark, 2 slashes crossed. May pulled it free, weighing the message. "Rustlers," she said. Jonah's throat bobbed. "They want us gone." May met his gaze. "Then they'll have to try harder." She slipped the knife into her belt. That night, they barred the doors, lantern burning low, silence broken only by coyotes calling. Jonah's dreams grew restless. He woke one night, sweating, whispering, "What if they take you like Pa?" May crouched beside him, her hand steady on his shoulder. "They won't," she said, voice firm, "because I'll fight, and because you'll stand beside me." Jonah searched her eyes, needing proof. She handed him a small revolver, old but clean. "It's yours now. Not for swagger, not for games. Only for when silence won't hold." Jonah clutched it with reverence, as if she'd placed trust itself in his hands. The boy no longer looked like someone waiting, he looked like someone preparing. The next week, May and Jonah rode to town for supplies. Whispers followed them like dust. Men leaned against posts, watching, waiting for her to stumble. One finally spoke. "That land's cursed. Best let it go." May tipped her hat without slowing. Jonah bristled, fists clenched, but May laid a calming hand on his shoulder. "Words don't mend fences," she said softly. At Jensen's store, the old man quietly slipped an extra sack of nails into her order. "For holding on," he said. May nodded, gratitude unspoken. Not everyone doubted. Some, she realized, were waiting for proof they could believe again. One night, while May checked the east fence, Jonah's voice carried sharp across the pasture. She sprinted back to find him standing before 3 riders, masked, their horses restless. Jonah held his revolver steady, though his hands trembled. May leveled her rifle from the shadows. "Leave while you still can," she called. The leader laughed, a harsh bark. "One woman, one boy, $1 ranch, not worth the effort to burn you out." He spurred forward, only to stop short as May's bullet shattered the ground at his horse's hooves. Silence fell. Even the crickets dared not speak. The rustlers pulled back that night, but May knew it was only the beginning. "They'll come harder," she told Jonah. He nodded, jaw tight. "Then we'll be ready." Together, they fortified the ranch. Jonah dug shallow trenches near the barn, while May reinforced the doors with planks thick enough to turn blades. They set bells on the fences to warn of intruders, and Jonah practiced his aim, until the tin cans along the fence line bore more holes than metal. Each clang of steel was an answer to fear. The ranch was no longer just shelter, it was a fortress of will. Trouble returned with fire. Flames licked the west pasture one windy night, grass crackling like gunpowder. Jonah shouted, hauling buckets from the trough, while May beat at the blaze with wet burlap. Smoke stung their throats, sparks clawed their clothes, but together they fought until the fire bowed and smoldered into ash. Jonah collapsed in the dirt, coughing, eyes wide with terror. "They'll kill us," he rasped. May knelt beside him, gripping his face. "Listen to me. Land's worth nothing to them if we're gone, but it's worth everything to us if we stay. That's why we win." Jonah swallowed hard, nodding. The next morning, blackened earth stretched where grass had been. Jonah stared at it, fists clenched. "Feels like they're winning." May placed a hand on his shoulder. "Not winning, trying. If they were winning, we wouldn't be standing here, and we are." She handed him a post, showing him how to reset the burned fence. "The only way to beat men like them is to outlast them." Jonah drove the post deep, sweat mixing with soot. Each strike of the hammer echoed like defiance. By evening, the fence stood again, not perfect, but upright. That, May thought, was victory enough. Days passed, heavy with waiting. Then, one afternoon, May returned from checking cattle to find Jonah missing. Panic cut through her steadiness like a knife. She searched the barn, the loft, the fields, nothing. Dust pawed the ground nervously, sensing her fear. Then she saw it. Tracks leading west, wagon ruts deep in the soil. May mounted and spurred hard, heart pounding. She found the boy near the creek, tied to a post, 3 rustlers jeering at him. Rage surged, but she steadied her breath. With the patience of a hunter, she raised her rifle. "Step away," she commanded, voice like iron. The rustlers spun, startled. One laughed. "A woman thinks she can order us?" May fired, clipping the man's hat clean off his head. The laughter died. Next shot won't miss. Jonah's eyes widened, hope flickering. The leader sneered. "You won't shoot with the boy here." May advanced, rifle steady. "Try me." Silence hung, heavy as thunderclouds. Finally, the leader cursed and cut Jonah's ropes. "This ain't finished," he spat, retreating to his horse. May kept her aim until they vanished into the hills. Only then did she lower the gun, rushing to Jonah. She pulled him close. "You're safe now." Back at the ranch, Jonah sat by the fire, silent, trembling. May patched the rope, burns on his wrists, with salve. "I should have fought," he muttered. May shook her head. "You fought by holding on. Don't confuse survival with weakness." His eyes lifted to hers, glistening. "You didn't give up on me." May's voice softened. "Never. Not for $1. Not for the world." Jonah leaned into her, and for the first time, let himself cry. May held him, staring into the flames, knowing the rustlers would return, but also knowing they would never take what bound her to the boy. The town could no longer ignore the feud. Jensen rode out, hat in hand. "Rustlers won't stop," he warned. "They'll burn the whole valley if they think it'll break you." May sipped her coffee, calm. "Then we'll make it cost them more than they're willing to pay." Jensen studied her, then Jonah, who stood straighter than before. "You've got fight enough for 10, Jensen said. "Maybe the town's ready to remember it can stand, too." He promised to spread word. That night, for the first time, May felt less alone. The ranch wasn't just theirs, it was becoming a cause. The final confrontation came on a moonless night. Hooves thundered, voices cursed, firebrands arced through the air. May and Jonah stood ready, rifles braced, bells jangling along the fence. Shots cracked, wood splintered, cattle bawled. May fired into the dark, her aim steady, each report a promise. Jonah, trembling, squeezed his trigger, striking a rider's arm. The man howled, dropping his torch. Flames fizzled in the dirt. The battle raged, but May's determination anchored them. Neighbors arrived, Jensen, Wilkes, even the schoolteacher's brother with his old shotgun. Together they pushed back the tide. Rustlers scattered, pride bleeding into the night. When dawn broke, smoke curled from charred grass, but the ranch still stood. Jonah sat on the porch, face streaked with soot and tears, revolver loose in his hand. May lowered beside him, setting her rifle aside. "We held," she said. Jonah nodded, exhaustion heavy in his eyes. "We didn't just hold," he whispered. "We won." May brushed a hand through his hair, pride swelling in her chest. "You're right, we did." For the first time, the boy smiled without shadow, and May knew the land had finally accepted them not because of the deed, but because they had fought for it. The town changed after that night. Folks who once whispered now tipped hats, offering bread, nails, or simply respect. That $1 ranch, they said, cost more than gold to defend. May took no credit. She let the story belong to Jonah, who carried himself taller, his scars worn like proof. Dust, ever faithful, trotted proudly with the blue ribbon May had tied months ago. Life on the ranch remained hard. Fences broke, storms came, but it was theirs, unshaken. May realized she hadn't just bought land. She had bought belonging. And in return, the boy had given her a family. As winter neared, May taught Jonah to mend saddles, oil rifles, and store grain. He learned fast, hands quick, mind sharper. One evening while they sat by the fire, Jonah asked, "What happens if Pa comes back?" May considered. "Then he'll find you standing tall, and he'll know you have a home, with or without him." Jonah nodded slowly. "Then I'll wait, but not for him for the land, for us." May smiled softly, heart heavy and light all at once. The boy wasn't waiting for rescue anymore. He was choosing his own place, and it was beside her. Snow dusted the ridge, white against black sky. May wrapped Jonah in her old coat, too big but warm. Together, they watched the land settle into silence. "Feels different now," Jonah said. May nodded. "It island, it's ours." The boy leaned against her, not afraid of the word. She rested an arm across his shoulders, steady, certain. Family wasn't always blood. Sometimes it was the people who showed up when storms did, and May, who had once ridden alone, knew she'd never ride that way again. The West had given her a son, and she intended to keep him. One spring morning, the ranch bloomed green again. Jonah raced Dust across the pasture, laughter breaking like sunlight. May watched from the fence, arms crossed, heart full. The boy's joy was louder than all the hardships that had tested them. She knew more storms would come, more men would try, but the ranch was stronger now. Together they had turned $1 into something priceless. May picked up a hammer, driving nails into a fresh gate. Each strike echoed not just defiance, but loved the sound of roots taking hold. Jonah galloped past, shouting, "We did it, May." And she believed him. Years later, people would tell the story of the $1 ranch. They would speak of rustlers, fire, and stubbornness, but mostly of a cowgirl who bought land with a coin and a boy who gave it a soul. The details shifted with each telling, but the truth remained. The ranch stood because they had stood. May never corrected the stories. She knew the West thrived on legends, and theirs was worth repeating. Jonah grew into a man under her watch, but in her heart, he was always the boy who'd claimed, "It was mine first." And now, it truly was. On quiet evenings, May still sat on the porch, rifle across her knees, watching the horizon. Jonah, taller now, often sat beside her, Dust grazing nearby. The land stretched wide, patient, forgiving, eternal. May would smile, feeling the weight of her journey, the lonely roads, the battles fought, the trust earned. She hadn't just found a ranch, she had found a home, a family, and a reason to stay. The West was harsh, but it had given her the greatest gift, a boy who became her son. And so the $1 ranch was never measured in money, but in love.